Good evening. This is Maestro with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a Best-of-3 Faction War series between the Imperial Guard and the Eldar, and it's going to start off on Katrin Purification Plant. Our first player is going to be Slasher, playing as the Lord Commissar, a slightly tanky melee hero who can also support his units by executing them. Next up, going to be JohnGrammaticus, playing as the Lord General, the only squad-based hero in the game, has a lot of support abilities for area of effect buffing. Finally, for the Imperial Guard, it's going to be Acey, playing as the Inquisitor. Inquisitor is a spellcasting and battlefield manipulation hero, can also become a melee tank. Their opponent's going to be a bunch of Eldar. We're going to start off with Asurmen. I'm probably saying that wrong, but that's what we're doing for now. He's going to be playing as the Warp Spider Exarch, teleporting ranged commander with the ability to harass. MammothMKII will be playing as the Farseer. Kind of a little lazy right there, not doing anything. Now she's going to walk around. Support commander with heals and area of effect buffs, as well as some disabling. And finally, it's going to be Sir Gunter the Kaiser, melee hero for the Eldar. Can become a tank or a spellcaster, certainly getting in melee right here, but also getting a little bit low. Going to have to retreat out there. Dire Avenger's moving up, but this is not looking too good, I think, for Sir Gunter. His Dire Avenger's getting kited. I don't even like the Howling Banshees engaging right here. They're most likely just going to bleed a model. They're going to try to trade out the kill for seeing if they can get the Commissar. They just might get it, but no, they don't even. So far, they've given up a single model. They might give up another one. They're still in there. In the end, they give up two. Do the Imperial Guard make it 3 models there? 2 models. Meanwhile, it does look like a Warp Spider Exarch was taken down here. A little bit surprising to see that. Typically, Imperial Guard not so great at forcing wipes or commander kills this early on in the game, since they don't have a lot in terms of early melee. But, you know, for whatever reason, that Warp Spider Exarch is indeed down, and it is going to be Acey who is definitely taking advantage of things on this side of the map. Sentinel will get the decap while the Dire Avengers do focus on it. Kind of a rough go here. They do lose a model, and the guardsmen are also going to support, trying to crowd around that one pipe for cover. Don't think every one of those guardsmen is quite in cover. More guardsmen trying to get into cover, but man, so many of them chasing after those Dire Avengers. Dire Avengers going to find themselves getting on out of here. So, part of the way this matchup works, you know, those Dire Avengers a little bit at the mercy of these Sentinels. That is part of why we do see multiple Dire Avengers from these players to put a lot of pressure on the Sentinel. But in a lot of cases, especially if we don't see the Dire Avengers bunched up that much, they are kind of at the mercy of the Sentinel, as we do see one squad of Dire Avengers having to retreat out of there. Doesn't achieve a whole lot. Howling Banshees we actually see from Sir Gunter, something that is not as common against Imperial Guard, because it's hard to use them effectively when the Sentinel is still alive. If you can take out the Sentinel, then the Banshees can actually do quite well, but as long as the Sentinel is alive, it can be difficult for those Banshees to get value without bleeding too much in the process. Or, honestly, sometimes hard to make them get value at all. We're going to see Catachan Devils out from every single one of our Imperial Guard players, so of course, part of the reason for that is the old reliable. That old reliable going to help with disrupting those Guardian weapon teams for a time being. We might also see a little bit of use of that smoke grenade to just really try to tip things in favor of the Imperial Guard even more. So, you know, Tier 1, I do think there are definitely some things in this matchup that are a little bit rough for the Eldar. But come Tier 2, I think a lot of things start to swing in their favor. So we're going to see just how much our Imperial Guard players can achieve in Tier 1. So far, they've certainly got a victory point lead. Warlock can sometimes have a little trouble getting things done, at least early on in the game. He does have Destructor, which is an area of effect spell, and now he's doubling up by also getting the Immolator Blade, another area of effect spell, but it's a little bit hard to have him get a whole lot of value in melee, except for the fact that I could be totally wrong there. He's certainly getting value there. Leaping into combat, actually really nice plays there by Sir Gunter in that engagement. On this side of the map, Dire Avenger's going to be focusing on the Guardsmen. Oh, Guardian Weapon Team trying to set up, but those pipes are kind of blocking line of sight. So Catachan Devils will get behind it once again. We have Doom from the Doombringer on the Farseer, trying to make those Catachan Devils take a little bit more damage. Back to our Commissar against the Eldar. Commissar will get out of there. That should be an artillery shell coming in from the artillery spotters. Warlock is also going to get out of there, and it's still going to be Eldar definitely being forced off here. If we take a look in our middle, we are going to have a Hammer of the Witches used on the Guardian Weapon Team. Got pretty low, but it will get out of there alive. Meanwhile, I'm liking the Inquisitor a little bit with this crossbow bolt pistol, just being able to do pretty nice damage to those Dire Avengers at range. Grenade going to be used on retreat, but it's going to be a complete miss. So this crossbow bolt pistol, I've been seeing more and more of this lately, and I mean, it's actually, I've definitely seen it all the way back, like in really old school times as well. A lot of range damage coming out from these Dire Avengers. So definitely, there are several ideas behind the triple Dire Avenger build against Imperial Guard. Part of it is that, well, it's harder to get value out of Howling Banshees, so you usually see Howling Banshees foregone, and then you'll just see multiple Dire Avengers again. Just, it's a lot of range damage to put out, puts a lot of pressure on the Sentinel. Just got to be careful, though, because when those Banshee models die, they will be costing more to reinforce than the Guardsman models. So part of the trick here is for the Eldar players to do their best not to bleed too hard in comparison to the Imperial Guard. So obviously the Sentinel is part of where the Guardsmen are avoiding bleed. For the Eldar, it's going to be a lot more in the Guardian Weapons team, so really trying to get that suppression, trying to lock down areas. Commissar needs to remember that Catachan Devils are absolutely fearsome in melee. Those Catachan Devils actually do more damage in melee than they do in ranged. Their shotguns do something like about 11 piercing DPS, and then you also have that grenade launcher model that actually does 0 damage, while Catachans actually do 20 power melee damage. So not only is that more raw damage than they do in range, but since they do power melee, that actually means they do full damage to commanders, I believe. Whereas usually regular melee actually has a penalty against commanders. Meanwhile, Sentinel just might go down so close. So that's part of the pressure that these Dire Avengers can put on that Sentinel. Artillery spotter will use its shell on the Guardian Weapon Team, knocking it over, forcing it to reset up, but this one squad of Guardsmen right here. Another shell is going to be used. Does that actually work? Yes, it does. So that's going to be the smoke shell, just reducing the range of the Guardian Weapon Team. I wasn't sure because that smoke shell didn't exactly hit head-on, but, you know, it was close enough. It did succeed, and then the Guardian Weapon Team didn't even have the range to shoot all the way at the Guardsman squad that wasn't even that far away from it. One squad of Dire Avengers getting really low, down to their last model, but a grenade going to go on the Catachan Devils. They dodge it partially, take some damage. If that grenade had actually hit full on, I actually think there's a decent chance that would have been a wiped Catachan Devil squad. It certainly would have been close at the very least. So Guardian Weapon Team. Oh, Manticore Strike coming in. Is this going to be dodged? Okay, the retreat button is hit. So we're going to see some Manticores here, and this is always something that is kind of a question. Manticores, they are potentially powerful, but usually at mid to high levels of play, they are a little bit less powerful. When in doubt, if you just press the retreat button, you'll get the damage resistance, the range damage resistance that will definitely make the Manticore Strike a lot less potent. Whereas if you don't hit the retreat button, if you don't react in time, something like a Guardian Weapon Team can actually get wiped from a single Manticore Strike. Missiles going to be coming out for our Sentinels. Certainly at least one of them does have it. Meanwhile, down here, Guardian Weapon Team super low. Oh my god, a grenade goes in as well on the other side. Both of those pretty vicious. Meanwhile, some missile launchers. Again, more frag missiles coming in from the Sentinel. Now, those frag missiles from the Sentinel, I've talked them up in some other series. Theoretically, it should actually be pretty hard to get them against the Dire Avengers with their mobility, that higher base speed than most other units. This could be another Manticore Strike. Let's see what value it gets. That's going to be another Manticore Strike. Oh no, retreat buttons are not hit. No squad gets wiped, but certainly, I mean, that one Dire Avenger squad getting out of there with 4 health got out by the skin of its teeth. Is that another Manticore strike? Because we do have 2 Manticores. Oh my god. If this... Ooh. Alright, that Guardian weapon team mostly just got lucky by getting knocked away from the rest of the missiles rather than getting knocked into them. Oh, this Sentinel potentially in a bad position, kind of path blocked by its own units. We're going to see a retreat as well as a bunch of Eldar spells, and here come the Wraith Guard. Wraith Guard, definitely a power play unit for the Eldar in this matchup. So that's part of why we see both the Lord General as well as the Commissar trying to put so much effort just into tying up those Wraith Guard. Sentinel getting super low, though. Yeah, just way too close there. Look at these Dire Avengers pushing up. Grenade goes in on the bunker, but no one's actually inside. IED detonated on the Dire Avengers. They never saw it coming. They're pretty low now. Meanwhile, Commissar does go down. So we see Wraith Guard for all players. Apparently some squad died for Asurmen. I missed it. But yeah, Wraith Guard for all 3 players. Typically an interesting unit. It's something that is particularly strong against Imperial Guard and generally kind of weak against most other races. These Wraith Guard do quite a large amount of burst damage. I believe they also do plasma cannon damage, which means they're effective against all targets with no exceptions. Infantry, super heavy infantry, regular infantry, which is kind of redundant since I already said infantry, heavy infantry, vehicles, buildings, everything. Typically, though, the Wraith Guard are slow, vulnerable, primarily vulnerable to being tied up in melee, so particularly vulnerable to jump units, and they need protection. Imperial Guard, though, don't quite have as easy of an answer to that. They don't have a jump unit. We don't see any Ogryns either, which are kind of the more or less the main melee squad that the Imperial Guard have, but there are a lot of other reasons why Imperial Guard players often choose not to get Ogryns. Alright, Autark going to be coming out. She will be stunned by that Sentinel Stomp. 1 Catachan Devil... Actually, it's the last Catachan Devil model. Pretty low. It is the... Again, that grenade launcher model. The grenade launcher model on the... Oh, let's talk about Manticore Strikes coming in, though. Manticore Strikes will force them off. Eldar converting this into a generator bash. So it does feel like our Eldar players are fighting back pretty hard at this time. Although perhaps not on this side of the map. Certainly right here, we've got Eldar pushing all the way up onto this power farm. Should be a complete bash. But the same thing is actually happening on this side, except it doesn't seem like our Imperial Guard players actually capitalizing quite as hard. They did kill 1 generator, trying to hold this with this bunker right here. We did see the Imlate go in from the Warlock. He's actually getting into melee right now. Still needs to be careful. I mean, if he's going to get into melee with Catachans this much, he might as well be going for the Witchblade of Kurnos instead, because he's honestly risking dying. These Catachan Devils reinforcing right here. So the Warlock, yeah, he's down again. So I think the Warlock needs to not really take those fights against the Catachan Devils unless he's going to actually switch out to the Witchblade of Kurnos. Like, if he switches out to the Witchblade of Kurnos, then he absolutely nukes the Catachans to hell. But otherwise, those Catachans just doing way too much damage in melee. And just to be clear on one thing I said before, just in case anyone wants to correct it. Oh, grenades on the Catachans, though! That's going to be some dead Catachans. So the grenade launcher model on the Catachans does not have like a basic attack. Like, it doesn't shoot normally, but of course, that grenade launcher model should theoretically be responsible for the old reliable ability. Oh, man! But just look at how effective these Wraith Guard are against the building. That building lasted seconds once the Wraith Guard arrived. Manticore Strike's going to go in! Going to detonate some of the mines that were also laid down. Unfortunately, the target selection by the Manticore did not seem that great. And most of those Dire Avenger squads actually pretty okay after getting hit by that first missile. So Eldar moving forward, looking to get yet more generator bashing done. The victory points are actually quite even, and our Imperial Guard player is actually on the verge of threatening a triple cap. Even though in many ways it does feel like the Wraith Guard have turned things around a bit for the Eldar. It does really feel like it's more the Eldar putting on the pressure, but they're just not converting it into victory point captures at the moment. Certainly they have gotten some kills, though. That's going to be another Manticore Strike. That's actually quite an old classic combo. Crippling volley from the Inquisitor, followed up by the Manticore Strike. It basically, like, it either forces a mass retreat or you take way too much damage. Jesus Christ. Leman Russ is dropped in, instantly loses half of its health to the combination of the Fire Dragons and the Wraith Guard. Man. Okay, Commissar Flare will be laid in. That'll definitely make the Wraith Guard just a little bit less vulnerable, but they're willing to get all the way up close to try to take out that Manticore. Fire Dragons are coming in as well, but it's too close to the enemy base, I think. And it'll just have to be a retreat. Oh my god, is this a rocket run? No, it's a creeping barrage, just defensive creeping barrage. Still a bit early for rocket runs to be coming out. Farseer might be going down. No, I think she'll be fine. Catachan Devils probably going down, though. That's going to be another squad of Catachan Devils getting wiped. So, yeah, I mean, we do have the Eldar players. Once again, they're literally pushing our Imperial Guard players all the way back into their bases, but they're still not really fully converting this into victory point pressure in their favor. We do need maybe Asurmen putting a unit on those victory points. But, of course, those Catachan Devils are passively infiltrating right there. They'll probably ambush whoever's trying to capture the point. Manticore Strike is also going to be forcing off a bunch of Eldar units away. Now, as effective as the Wraith Guard are being, I think part of what we're also seeing is the Manticore is getting quite a bit of value as well. The Manticores are forcing lots of mass retreats that are keeping our Eldar players off the field. All right, quite a pause in the action. Plasma gun's going to be upgraded on the Guardsmen. Of course, a big reason for this is that the Wraith Guard have heavy armor. Now, this is a tough call because, of course, you know, the plasma guns are going to make the Guardsmen do a lot more damage than they normally would against the Wraith Guard, than they would with just their las guns. But they still can't really slug it out with the Wraith Guard. So we see what they're trying to do. They're trying to kite in and out. They're trying to go in, take a few shots, back out, because of the kind of the wind-up on the Wraith Guard, trying to get in a few shots and then get out before the Wraith Guard actually wind up to fire. In the end, it's interesting, but I don't think it's going to be completely successful in the end. A lot more going on this side of the map, I think. We're going to see, who is this again? This is the Farseer in here. She's got the rune armor, she's got the Doombringer. Manticore moving up, looking for a Manticore Strike somewhere probably. Fire Prism also going to be out from Asurmen. Oh, another Manticore Strike going to go in. Cadian Kashyyyk squad nearly wiped there. Fire Prism really does need to move back, though. Got to be very, very careful with this Fire Prism. Fire Prism certainly going to be very, very effective against the Guardsmen, but Fire Prism also needs to be very, very careful against Imperial Guard. Needs to worry about the possibility of infiltrated stormtroopers. Of course, we don't actually see stormtroopers from any of our players just yet, but of course, one of these commanders can call them in. If I'm completely honest, I forgot which one. Should be the Inquisitor, actually. But nevertheless, you know, we don't see stormtroopers now. We could absolutely see them later on. Yes, even purchased in Tier 3 as a way of hunting down that Fire Prism from Asurmen. And it's not too hard for it, as long as they really get like a successful ambush and the Fire Prism is not protected by other units. A Melta Stormtrooper squad can definitely really threaten a Fire Prism. Leman Russ certainly threatened on its own. It does have that Executioner Cannon. Oh my, though, we're probably going to see one of those squads get wiped. No, actually, they'll retreat out of there in time. Oh, one missile actually still hitting in retreat. Those, yeah, Fire Dragons getting down to 4 hit points. Seer Council going to be moving in. Still chasing after the Guardsmen at this point. Might have lost track of them. Now going to go for the Lord General, but they're already at about like 25% of their hit points. And we're going to see the Warp Throw out of the Warlock. Warp Throw along with Providence. And this is definitely a sensible choice. Definitely focus on spellcasting, but he's also going into melee so much. does use the warp throw. And wow, the Seer Council actually gets so low. Meanwhile, on this side, Guardsman still trying to take some shots at the Wraith Guard. Of course, ideally, the Commissar just wants to be able to tie up the Wraith Guard, prevent them from shooting, and then this is a pretty good situation where the Guardsman can actually do plenty of damage against the Wraith Guard. Unfortunately for them, an Avatar is moving forward. As long as the Avatar is moving forward, the Guardsmen need to move back. Oh no! Kasrkin's also getting so low. Do they get wiped here? Warlock is going to try to have something to say about it, but actually they've still got a nice 70-ish hit points left. Those Kasrkins actually have a pretty nice base health pool, so even when it looks like they only have like a little speck of health left, they've actually got a decent amount, enough to keep them alive. Pergada's going to be thrown out by the Inquisitor. Tier 3 war gear, one of the few in the game. Meanwhile, oh no, the Manticore Strike not responded to this time. So no retreat hit, and that is a Guardian weapon team going down. Lord General still in here at pretty low hit points. There definitely is plenty of damage against this Avatar. I mean, the plasma cannon damage of that Leman Russ actually can be doing bonus damage to the Avatar. And certainly the Bane Blade, no slouch either in terms of damage. Fire Prism taking shots. We've got the double Fire Prism out of Asurmen. He just has to be very careful. He honestly needs to start moving them back a little bit, I think. That is going to be an Eldritch, primarily on the infantry, but I think the Leman Russ... No, the Leman Russ was not caught by a single Eldritch Bolt, which means that it has not been snared. If it was snared, there might be a chance to take it down. If anything, that Eldritch did hit some infantry, but I feel like the bigger value there was either trying to really make sure it actually hit the Bane Blade or the Leman Russ. So we still have some Eldritches waiting, I think. No, actually, I'm looking at the wrong side of the unit tabs. It's actually our Imperial Guard players who have enough red to use nukes. Slasher almost there. Acey is actually already well over there. If Acey's gonna have this much red, I honestly definitely want to see him use a rocket run. I think the rocket run can be very effective, particularly against the Dire Avengers. Oh no, these Catachan Devils, why are you backing up against the wall? These aren't Catachan Devils, these are Kasrkins. One hit from that big weapon from the Avatar takes a chunk out of their health. No models lost, however. So, victory point still quite even, 212 to 236. Our Eldar players holding at this point, though. A lot of energy shields have been placed to try to help them hold the line. Farseer will take that garrison. That will, I believe, I actually wasn't able to check whether this was a repair garrison, or, sorry, repair bunker, or medic bunker. But won't be able to hold it for too long, and the Farseer just might go down in retreat. No, she won't. I'm surprised. I mean, yes, of course, she's in retreat. There's only range damage, but I feel like with how many units there were there, I feel like she could have been taken out. Wraith Guard taking yet more shots. Going to be Crippling Volley, and that should be followed up by a Manticore Strike. Ideally, they will just retreat out of there before they even have to worry about the possibility of a Manticore Strike. Maybe Manticore Strike cooldown wasn't ready. We did also see, I believe, a grenade come out from the Kasrkins to try to combo with that Crippling Volley. All right, Bane Blade is moving forward. I don't see... Okay, actually, we've got two Wraith Guard trying to do some damage to it. Since the Wraith Guard are trying to do damage to the Bane Blade, that does mean that they are ignoring the Guardsmen that are targeting them. Now we're going to see Kasrkins in. Yes, this time I got it right. Those are Kasrkins, not Catachan Devils. Manticore Strike going to go in. Does not do massive damage, but... Well, actually, this Guardian Weapon team starting to take a little bit more damage. And it hasn't reset up yet, I believe. Pergada's going to be used again, stunning all of those Dire Avengers. Grenade will also go in on this squad of Dire Avengers. We're going to see the Avatar move forward yet again from Sir Gunter. So our Eldar players holding the line at this time. They've ticked about 100 victory points in their favor. Manticore Strike's going in. Does connect on some of the fire prisms. Doing some damage there. And we're going to see a D-Cannon brought out onto the field as well. D-Cannon, long-range artillery. Meanwhile, this one's a rocket run. Okay, does catch some of the Dire Avengers. I don't think that a rocket run completely hit full on. I think there was also a little bit of dodging from our Eldar players. Manticore Strikes coming in yet again as the Baneblade pushes forward. The Seer Council are pretty low on health, and they've only got 3 of their models. They're trying to chase off the support for the Baneblade. They certainly don't do that well against the Baneblade itself. Meanwhile, the Avatar trying to put some more damage on this Baneblade, which is already below half of its hit points. Oh, we're going to see the Eldritch Storm combined with the Time Field, and this is bad news for the Baneblade, down to 400 hit points. We've got the Fire Dragons chasing after it, and that is 1 dead Baneblade. Looks like we're having a few singularities on this side of the map. Pergatus is attempted by the Inquisitor. It does work, but at the same time, she will also be going down after getting knocked back. Triple Fire Prism out at this time, I believe, all belonging to Asurmen because of that. Can tell pretty easily from that crazy color scheme. I think at this time, they should even take some shots, switch to the Focus Beam. Okay, they want to take care of the victory points instead of trying to take care of that Leman Russ. With that many Fire Prisms, they could switch to the Focus Beam and then, I think, finish off the Leman Russ. But, of course, they're prioritizing the victory points, trying to accelerate that win condition in their favor. More Manticore Strikes going in. The Manticore Strikes delaying the Eldar. Manticore Strikes going in and nearly wiping one of those Fire Prisms. Meanwhile, on this side, the Avatar actually just going forward, trying to draw so much aggro. Just at this moment, I feel it's mostly just trying to buy space. It's going to be some Emperor's Wrath coming in from the Lord Commissar. The Avatar is just kind of zoning out the Imperial Guard from coming back to their natural victory point. Of course, we've got other units to support it, and this is looking pretty close to the end for our Imperial Guard players. Alright, so that'll be game 1 going in favor of the Eldar. Time to move on to game number 2. Game number 2 of our Best-of-3 series between the Imperial Guard and the Eldar will be taking place on Deathworld Temple. Our first player, Acey, going to be yet again on that Imperial Guard Inquisitor. Slasher going to be playing as the Lord Commissar, and JohnGrammaticus will be playing as the Lord General. Their opponents, it's a bunch of Eldar. Asurmen will be playing as the Warlock this time. Sir Gunter the Kaiser going to be playing as the Warp Spider Exarch. And finally, it's going to be Mammoth playing as the Farseer, who we can't even see just yet. Where are you? There we go. So already we are going to see the Warlock trying to get into melee with the Inquisitor. Inquisitor will use Hammer of the Witches. But, you know, Warlock does proc a special attack. Warlock also going to fleet of foot on out of there as soon as the Sentinel arrives. So for the moment, looks like Acey probably going to be taking this victory point. Eldar going to try to have something to say about that. Sentinel will move forward. Does break the cover that's right in front of the Dire Avengers, kind of removing that cover bonus. Does have to move back, though. Sentinel's also going to need repairs at some point. Where are the guardsmen to support it? One of them, of course, is just back here capturing a requisition point. And then this one was just built last, so it was just coming out onto the field a little bit later. Looks like Commissar is already going to be getting out of here. So he's going to be... Guardsmen are just going to be here by themselves, and I think this is going to be a little bit too much for them. Without a Sentinel to support, as we see, it looks like Slasher's not even bought a Sentinel. He's not going to be able to defend against the Howling Banshees nearly as well. So Dire Avengers as well as the Farseer chasing after JohnGrammaticus.
What is he going to do about this? It seems like a lot of our Imperial Guard players, certainly in the middle and on the right, kind of finding themselves on the losing end of these early fights. Maybe this Sentinel, though, is going to make me shut up. Does get a nice flank on these Dire Avengers, knocks them down. Dire Avengers not even in cover, and as we see, the Sentinel is also just not being answered at all. But the Guardsmen also going to need to get out of their Guardsmen retreat, but so do 2 of the Dire Avenger squads. Meanwhile, back here, here's where things, looking a little bit rough for the Imperial Guard now. It does seem like in the time that I moved away, Acey did get pushed out. Double Dire Avengers going to be doing a lot of damage, though. Now, the Dire Avengers, as a squad, they do have higher DPS than the Guardsmen. But, again, the individual models of the Guardsmen cost a little bit more, and then once those Guardsmen do get their Sergeant, they actually reinforce for 2 for the cost of 1. So every Dire Avenger model that dies is worth quite a bit more than every Guardsman model that dies. And especially when we have these Dire Avenger squads right out of the gate with no aspect, they actually have the same number of hit points as the Guardsman models. So Guardian Weapon Team going to be tied up by the Dire Avengers. All right, victory point's going to be taken back by Acey at this time, but our Imperial Guard players starting off a little bit rough in this one. Significant victory point lead for the Eldar. More Catachan Devils coming out of our Imperial Guard players. Let's hope that they can keep them alive this time. Saw a lot of Catachan Devils dying last game. Warp Spider Exarch trying to chase after this Sentinel. Now, the Warp Spider Exarch does have the improved targeters. An upgrade which I like. It doesn't provide any utility, but it's very reliable in terms of what it provides in terms of damage, increased weapon range, as well as range damage, which, again, no utility, but I think there's very, very consistent value out of it. Grenade gonna go in. Stormtroopers, not Stormtroopers. I don't know what they are anymore. The Guardsmen walking right on top of that grenade. Taking a little bit less damage than I expected, but plenty of follow-up damage from the Dire Avengers and the Guardian Weapon Team. That is going to be some Guardsmen forced off. Generators are going to be oppressed a little bit, but we do have the Catachan Devils coming in as well. They managed to scare off one of those Dire Avengers. They do use Old Reliable on the Guardian Weapon Team, but the Guardian Weapon Team is able to reset up again. They're trying to look for a shotgun blast. I don't know if this is worth it. Oh, this is a bold mission for this Sentinel. Gonna get a stomp there. Does knock over one of the Guardian Weapon Teams, but the other one is still set up. My God, the Inquisitor just barely gets into range, but she's already just so low. She ends up going down anyway. Actually did make it into melee, but it does seem like Acey's struggling just a little bit with the double Guardian Weapon Teams in this lane of the map. Guardian Weapon Teams in general seem to really be giving our Guardsmen players a tough time. JohnGrammaticus actually lost a Sentinel, as I believe he was the one who had a Sentinel. Slasher did not. That's going to be a Guardsman squad down, potentially. 10 hit points, 1, and there it is. Man, this is looking rougher and rougher. Last game, our Guardsman players actually, I feel they actually had a bit of an advantage in the early game, but as we saw the Wraith Guard coming out in Tier 2, things got a little bit rougher for them. But this is looking quite rough. That's my favorite word of the day. The word of the day is rough. I hope I'm expanding your vocabulary right here. While the Eldar are expanding their victory point lead. Quite a transition we got. We have double IEDs set up. And that's not going to be detected, I don't think. We don't have any Rangers out of our Eldar players. I don't think we're going to see any Rangers. Infiltrated Catachan Devils. Does that mean we have the Interrogator's armor granting the Silently ability? Oh, the Catachan Devils are going to be sniffed out. They are definitely looking for... They were looking, and they are still looking for the Guardian Weapons Teams. Is that going to be enough, though? Oh no, they don't even fully get around the firing arc of the Guardian Weapon Team. And now this Sentinel, oh my God, this is looking disastrous for Acey. He loses the Sentinel. Silently on the Catachan Devils does definitely not get the value he was looking for. A little bit of a missed opportunity there, I think, though. I'm pretty sure a grenade from Asurmen out of this particular Dire Avenger squad could have been the wipe on those Catachan Devils. Banshees nearly wiped. Double Catachans out from this is Slasher. Smoke Grenade going to be put down. Psychic Storm also going out on the Guardsmen, just doing damage over time as well as suppressing them. They're getting really low here. But this is a medic bunker, so of course units will heal and reinforces off of it. But man, the victory points, Jesus. Still 504 our Eldar players. Not a single one ticked in favor of the Imperial Guard, and they are still losing them. Guardsmen rather low. Grenade goes onto the Lord General of all people? Doesn't feel like the highest value there. Lord General definitely a bit tankier. One of the retinue members did die, but I mean, if you compare that to the potential value could have gotten on these Catachan Devils when they were definitely really, really bunched up and are a bit squishier than even those retinue members on the Lord General. Man, our Imperial Guard players soon to be down to less than 100 victory points. We're going to have Catachan Devils getting forced off under the fire of this Wraith Guard, and Wraith Guard, of course, also going to annihilate this bunker in a matter of seconds, unless the Lord General can tie them up, which, of course, is what he's going to look to do. Man, still, Imperial Guard bunker still going down to about 25% of its hit points anyway. At some point, though, it seems like Sir Gunter has suffered quite a few losses, so he's down to only just double Dire Avengers. Not sure. Oh, he definitely lost Howling Banshees. Actually, I'm not sure if he got like a tier 1.5 squad. He certainly had the Howling Banshees, which, you know, as we've seen, a little bit harder for them to get value against the Imperial Guard. Let's take a look at how Acey's doing right here. We are going to see, ooh, Hammer of the Witches used on the Warlock. The Warlock does eventually retreat out of there. Pretty sure he had to. And Immolate is also mostly dodge by the Guards, and we now have a Chimera out on the field for him. Double Guardian Weapon seems not going to do too well into this Chimera unless they upgrade to a Bright Lance. At least one of them pretty much has to. Otherwise, this Chimera will actually just run around with impunity. So I think that's part of the reason why we see the Chimera trying to get behind the Guardian Weapon teams. And one of those Guardian Weapon teams also being tied up. That one Guardian Weapon team might actually get wiped right there. Indeed it does. Okay, nice plays by Acey. Old Reliable, since he doesn't have to use Old Reliable in the Guardian Weapon team, is able to use it on all three of the Dire Avengers. So Acey managing to fight back in this lane. It's actually a 1-to-1 cap, and our Imperial Guard players managing to stall out the victory points at this time. Actually getting the 1-to-0 cap in their favor for the time being. So now they are actually ticking down some victory points, but their margin for error is going to be pretty low at this point now that they're already in the double digits. Catachan's really low. They're not healing off the bunker because it's no longer in their possession. Farseer going to try to finish them off. They don't get it. Can the auto? Oh, okay. I don't know which one of them actually got the last killing blow, but it was one of them. This, god damn, this pillar really does get in the way. Commissar certainly acting like a boss right here with that Xenos Power Claw. Grenade gonna go in! Does a huge amount of damage. One of those Guardsman squads nearly getting wiped, but will be able to reinforce off the bunker since it's now back in Guardsman possession. However, Warp Spider Exarchs must have been called in behind, or, I mean, it's also quite possible that they just teleported around and were able to get this flank just with their teleport. So that's looking pretty rough. Force melee on the Commissar. All right. What else is going on? Chimera moving forward. Man, this is quite a battle at this time. Eldar certainly moving forward in victory points again. Just putting yet more pressure on our Imperial Guard players. Chimera's going to move in. Warp Spiders, however, they will teleport in. They will get the Haywire. Is there any follow-up from some Wraith Guard? Doesn't look like it. So, a little surprised there. So, I mean, of course, the Haywire is very, very dangerous to the Chimera, but only if there's something to follow it up on. Follow it up with, rather. Catachan Devils trying to move up close along with that Inquisitor, trying to tie up the Wraith Guard in melee. So again, once they are tied up in melee, they're pretty ineffective. They don't have much of their own defense once they are tied up in melee. So that is going to be some Wraith Guard forced off the field. Time is quickly running out, though, for our Imperial Guard players. Double cap against them yet again. They're down to about 30 victory points. They've got to make things happen so fast. Commissar with the Xenos Power Claw is certainly going to be chopping up those Dire Avenger models pretty quickly, though. We are going to see some Commissar mines being put in. Grenade goes in. Hit connects a little bit, kind of on the edge. Warp Spiders teleport in. Only one of them gets a Haywire. They both have it. The other one did not get it. Although, if anything, this might be better, because instead of stacking them directly on top of each other, it could be more time. Well, it's going to be a moot point at this point, because those Warp Spiders are forced off. I was mostly just thinking about theoretically, if you don't stack the Haywires directly on top of each other at the same time, you can actually get more disable time on the Chimera if you kind of stagger them. All right, double cap for the Imperial Guard players, but they've only got 7 victory points left. Oh, and they just lost another Guardsman squad. So, you know, I talked about how before I said they don't have much margin for error. Now they've got pretty much no margin for error. We are going to see Ogryns out on the field this time, though. First time in this series. Ogryns going to be chasing after those Dire Avengers, certainly doing a lot of damage to them. Doom is put on the Ogryns to make them take more damage, but there's not a whole lot of damage sources against them. It's going to be the Wraith Lord that's the main source of damage against them, but if anything, the Wraith Lord's in a massive amount of trouble. Double Ogryns right here. Those double Ogryns can chase after it. The Catachan Devils also have their Sergeant Leader that has the Melt-A-Gun. I think this should be a dead Wraith Lord. Yeah, Commissar chasing after it too. It's 100% a dead Wraith Lord. Seems like there might be some other things going on right here, but I want to make sure that we catch this dead Wraith Lord. I'm surprised it's living as long as it is, and then it finally does go down. Meanwhile, Warp Spiders, yeah. Now, Warp Spiders, unfortunately for them, are actually not that great against Ogryns. I mean, they should be able to teleport and stay away from the Ogryns, but they're actually a pretty poor source of damage against the Ogryns. Those Warp Spiders have very high overall base DPS. As a squad with the Exarch and with the Aspect, they do roughly something like 100 piercing DPS as a squad, which is a great raw number, but because they do piercing and because the Ogryns have super heavy infantry armor, a lot of that damage is mitigated against them specifically. Certainly the Warp Spider's still good against many of the other Imperial Guard squads, as well as the commanders. Ogryns going to be charging in. They're pretty much unsupported, though, at the moment, though. They're going to need some help. Guide is put on them. Although the Dire Avengers and the Wraith Guard may not be, although the Dire Avengers and the Warp Spiders may not be a good source of damage against the Ogryns, the Wraith Guard are. That's why they're prioritizing the Wraith Guard, but they're also just overwhelmed, which is why they're now getting some support. Commissar mines thrown in, ultra reliable used to detonate the mines, and they're retreating through a bunch of mines as well. Ooh, Warp Spiders will be going down there. What happened? Commissar going to be moving in. These mines actually getting crazy value. All right, meanwhile, in the middle, more Ogryns going to be just trying to hold the line against triple Guardsmen. They're going to need some help right here. Heavy weapon team is setting up, and there are Commissar mines again to stop a potential decap. Now, of course, these Dire Avengers are going to be looking for that decap. Now they activate Embolden and then just instantly retreat. On this side of the map, this is the only side where the Eldar still actually maintaining control of the victory points, or at the very least they're going to get it back. Hammer of their Witches on the Warlock. However, the Chimera is finished off. Even saw the Warlock getting experience for that just because he tagged it at all, I think, with the Immolator, even though the Immolator definitely not responsible for much of the damage. Looks like do we have a Judgment? Yes, we've got the Inferno Pistol on the Inquisitor right now. Bright Lance is set up, so that Bright Lance is going to have to retreat, pretty much. And it looks like Acey even going to manage to take the victory point for his team pretty soon. He just needs to put a unit on it. Certainly won this engagement. I feel like he could chase after that Wraith Lord, especially with the Leman Russ. This is absolutely a dead Wraith Lord. I'm not entirely sure what happened there. Oh, going to be a few deaths right here, though. Commissar's going to go down. Seems like that might have even been a sync kill by the Farseer. Can the Eldar hold this, though? We do have some Warp Spiders. Looks like they've got crack shot on them, and with that crack shot, they'll finish off the heavy weapon team. Our Imperial Guard players losing squads, but so are some of our Eldar players as well. Grenade will be thrown out by the Dire Avengers, but these Ogrins practically running amok. That will be a cap by the Eldar. It's still only one cap in their favor, but here is the Warp Spider Exarch on this point. He's only got 100 hit points left. Something needs to be done about him, and it needs to be done fast. I was going to say, okay, finally. Like, if that Leman Russ had just been a little bit slower, it might have been a bad time, and it might have been, well, the end of the game in favor of the Eldar. So, interesting things. We do have a Vanquisher Leman Russ. Man, JohnGrammaticus, what happened to his army? We got a Vanquisher Leman Russ right here. Vanquisher Leman Russ is the anti-vehicle variant for the Leman Russ, even though technically all Leman Russ variants in this game do anti-vehicle damage, but the Vanquisher has the longest range, and it also has kind of the burst damage on its cannon. Now, some interesting things I've learned about the Vanquisher Leman Russ recently. Since it does explosive damage, it actually targets infantry very, very accurately. But it's still not as good as the other Leman Russ variants against infantry, because the Vanquisher does not do any splash damage, whereas the other Leman Russ variants do. Still, this is a bit of a contrast compared to things like Predators, whereas if you upgrade to the Las Cannon on the Predator, Las Cannon actually has very poor accuracy against infantry, and is pretty ineffective against infantry. The Vanquisher still retains some reasonable effectiveness against infantry. Meanwhile, it does look like our Imperial Guard players seeming to be giving up points. This one's going to be taken back in favor of the Eldar. This one is very much up for grabs. More Commissar Mines going to be put in as the Seer Council move forward. They're not looking for the cap. They're looking to engage on the Ogrins. The Ogrins looking to move forward. The Ogrins... The Ogrins going to step on the mines as well, as I think that was the Fire Prism actually detonating the Commissar Mines and then getting the suppression on both the Ogrins as well as the Seer Council. But the Seer Council definitely being worse for wear in that time. They'll be saved by another shot from the Fire Prism. Meanwhile, we have a decap right here. Warp Spiders are on the point. What are the Imperial Guard players going to do? Because, again, they don't have much room for error. Instead, we're going to see Warp Spiders called in, and they're going to be taking down that heavy weapon team. Certainly going to be putting a lot of damage on. This is looking really bad. The Catachan Devils come to save the day. Another saving play. Oh, but the Wraith Guard going to try to take it over. Going to need a lot more damage to stop the Wraith Guard. What are they going to do? We don't even have plasma guns on these guardsmen. It's going to have to be a Manticore Strike. Manticore Strike going to put in so much damage that is actually going to threaten to kill the squad, and they have to retreat. This is like the third time where we've seen a cap that needed to be stopped for the Imperial Guard just to stay in this game. Double Vanquisher Leman Russ is here, so our Imperial Guard players really liking their Vanquisher cannons. The Leman Russ out of JohnGrammaticus only has the default battle cannon. Again, default battle cannon is actually pretty well-rounded in that it does, it's effective against vehicles, it's also effective against infantry, but the raw DPS is only about half of the other Leman Russ variants. As we see here, 35.71 explosive DPS. The Executioner does about 33 point something. This Vanquisher, the default battle cannon that we see right here, that stubby one right there, only does about 17 DPS. Uh-oh. We're going to see Imperial Guard in trouble yet again. They have the double cap right now, so they can at least afford the decap. Manticore Strike's going to try to threaten those Seer Council. More Commissar Mines going to be put in. I feel like the Commissar Mines out of Slasher, I think, is a big part. Oh my god, yeah. Commissar Mines out of Slasher is actually a big part of what is allowing the Imperial Guard players to stay in this game. Manticore Strike, meanwhile, doing quite a number on those Dire Avengers. I think that might have even been... Did they get wiped? It's hard. There's so many Dire Avenger squads that it's hard to tell. And I think another squad... Oh. Seer Council actually get really close to being wiped. The Ogrins are going for it. And they actually get it. And they won't even get... They won't get wiped either. So that's a big, big win for them. I think that's going to be end of this Leman Russ. Yeah. Haywired and then finished off by Fire Prisms. 2 Fire Prisms. Mostly out of Asurmen. Actually, 4 Fire Prisms total. 1 for Sir Gunter and Mammoth, and then 2 for Asurmen. Asurmen definitely going to have these very colorful ones. They, in my opinion, they actually look quite ugly. All right, then. So, Wraithguard literally just trying to tank this out. They'll even activate Wraithbone to just try to tank it out. That's enough to get them the decap, but it's not enough to get them the full cap. They're getting really close to dying. They're going to have to retreat, or they're just going to straight up die. They actually just die. That should be an Eldritch. Yes, it is. Oh, no. One of those Leman Russes did not move out of there in time. One of them did. The other didn't. And that's going to be the end of one of the Leman Russes. So on this side of the map, looks like we'll have a Commander revive, but it's mostly just the Warp Spiders getting slaughtered. They won't even teleport or retreat out of there. At this point, I think it's mostly a fight over the middle. Autocannon heavy weapon team certainly doing a lot of work, but it's going to be tied up by the Farseer. Farseer's actually getting so close that she's getting in range of the Manticore. We do have a time field on the Manticores, and now the Fire Prism trying to move up close, seeing if we can get some shots on the Manticore, but it will be threatened by the Leman Russ. Oh, Fire Prism! No, just getting way too close. Got to rely on that sight. Meanwhile, Warp Spider's still trying to get this point right here. Ogren's going to be knocked over by the Fire Prisms. Fire Prisms doing so much disruption from long range. Warp Spiders eventually get so low on hit points that they will need to get out of there. Another Fire Prism is going to be taken down, though, just shot at by that Inquisitor. A lot of big late-game losses. More mines going to be dropped in. We're going to see a Manticore Strike try to be following up right after it. Might take out the Commissar. Okay, we will see certainly some guardsmen definitely get hit from that, so it's actually a pretty old combination. Part of the intention is you drop the mines from the Commissar. Now, those mines don't activate immediately. There is some delay before units will detonate them by walking over them. But you can also manually detonate them yourself, particularly with the Manticore, and then the combination of that can be quite powerful. In that case, though, we did see many of those Eldar units did manage to run away and not take the full brunt of that combination. Meanwhile, a lone Dire Avenger squad trying to get a back cap. I don't think this is going to be enough. Yeah, there's way too much damage. This is one of the cases where this unupgraded Leman Russ actually going to be a bit better, getting all that splash damage, giving 3 of those models at once. Decap did actually happen, as the Warp Spider Exarch is still here. He really needs to be focused on at this time. It's incredibly important that he be taken down. Lord General trying to finish this off. Is he reinforcing his retinue members at all? Would give him a little bit more tankiness to stay in the field here. Doesn't need it. They will get the kill. He's going to start the cap, and he's also going to start reinforcing those retinue members. Warp Spider's moving around. And what are they going to do? We're now actually in the double-digit victory points for the Eldar. They've lost much of their armies. It's looking pretty good for the Imperial Guard, despite the rough start for them. Still some fight going over this bottom victory point, as we do see big retreats coming out of Asurmen, who has lost most of his army. I wonder how much more punishment we can see coming out of now this Executioner Leman Russ from Acey. Executioner Leman Russ, really the anti-infantry variant for the Leman Russ, even though the anti-vehicle damage out of it is actually quite high. But it's got the splash damage. It has, it fires in a very fast pattern, and the disadvantage to it is that it does have a lower range. It actually, getting the Executioner actually lowers the range of the Leman Russ compared to the default cannon. Oh, wow. The victory points are actually done, and our Imperial Guard players take it. Only just realized it as we started to see the GGs coming out. That'll be the end of game 2. Remember, this is only a best-of-3 series, so we only have one final game to determine the winner. game number 3 in our best-of-3 series between the Eldar and the Imperial Guard are going to take place on Argus Desert Gate. Our first player going to be Asurmen, playing as the Warp Spider Exarch. Draktan will be stepping in for Mammoth, playing as the Farseer, always rather elusive like that. And finally, Sir Gunter the Kaiser, going to be on the Warlock. Their opponents, the Imperial Guard players, we're going to have Acey on that Inquisitor. JohnGrammaticus will once again be playing as the Lord General, and Slasher also going to be playing as the Lord Commissar. All right, double Sentinels coming out from, well, double Sentinels for the Imperial Guard as a whole. Acey has one, JohnGrammaticus has one. Slasher at the moment not going for it. And I've talked about this a little bit recently. Generally, the Sentinel is very much ever-present, very much a core unit to the way the Imperial Guard is played. I would say the overwhelming majority of builds in Tier 1 for the Guardsmen do include a Sentinel, but there have been some occasions, it's definitely not as common, where you will see Imperial Guard players not get a Sentinel. My God, what is that Farseer doing? Oh no, that's an early kill. She dies in the halfway point of the map, so that's not it shouldn't be too hard of a revive, especially when it's right in the middle lane, which is generally probably the least important lane on this map, at least in the early game. In the late game, you could argue that the middle lane is actually more important than the bottom lane, but the bottom lane is actually very, very important in the early game. So we're actually seeing quite a few Howling Banshees coming up. 2 Howling Banshee squads this time. Sentinel does have the Sentinel Stomp up in time, but takes so much damage from the Dire Avengers in the process. Just barely able to get out of there alive. Commissar going to be in melee, of course, with those Dire Avengers, trying to tie them up, prevent them from doing their damage. Yet more Dire Avengers going to come in and support, so that one squad of Guardsmen that's pretty low on health is going to have to retreat out of there. All right, does look like Guardsmen will eventually take hold of the contested victory point. They did not have it at the start, but, forcing off those Eldar, Guardsmen also going to try to scare off this Warp Spider Exarch. He's going to look for the decap, teleport out, then retreat. Maybe not retreat. I think he still kind of has to retreat. At some point. I guess he's just trying to see what he can. Yeah, so he does have to retreat. He was just trying to see what he could get done before retreating. And I think he was just trying to see if he can get one Lord General Retinue member, which I don't think he even got. So double cap for the Guardsmen at this time, as we do see the Sentinel pushing up. Unfortunately, the Sentinel, for all the strengths that it has, raw damage is not one of them. So when it comes to bashing the power generator, that is something it's not too great at. Guardian weapon team going to move forward. I'm not sure if it's moving forward by itself. I mean, it can certainly tank a bit of damage as long as it's in cover, but Old Reliable will knock it right out of cover. So double Guardian weapon teams being set up, but there's got to be more here, especially if we're going to have 2 Guardsmen players coming up to double the top. How are things going in the bottom? Again, an important lane, but mostly if you can actually achieve power bashes. You need to protect the power if you are in this lane. Yet another crossbow bolt pistol out of Acey. He's gotten that war gear every single game, if I remember correctly. Actually, I know he had the Infernal pistol in the second game, but I forget if he got a crossbow bolt pistol in the early game. Does look like the multi-laser turret is going to be taken out. Just barely. It's getting repairs. They're trying to keep it alive. They're going to keep it alive. Meanwhile, up top, our Guardsmen players probably going to be conceding the top victory point. Maybe not. We do have JohnGrammaticus trying to come in to support. Slasher's trying to see if he can help with this and commit, but his units are just too low. This Sentinel getting really, really close. It's still just tanking the damage of the Dire Avengers up, so... Not the Dire Avengers, the Guardian weapon team. It can't get out in time. Can they trade this out with a kill on the Dire Avengers? I don't think they can. Bit of a loss there for JohnGrammaticus. A commander, however, did go down for Sir Gunter on this side of the map, as we do see Acey holding the bottom lane. So victory point lead currently in favor of the Guardsmen. I think that's an artillery shell coming down soon. Going to knock over the Guardian weapon team. Will stop them from capping. The Commissar is completely by himself here, however, well, except for that one artillery spotter squad. I don't think it's enough. We're going to have a bunch of... I mean, we've literally got 4 Guardian weapons teams right here. They're kind of being disabled. One of them is capturing the point, so it's not actually doing anything. But the Commissar is just completely unsupported there. And, well, yeah, mostly unsupported. And he does go down. Yeah, that one was a little desperate, I think. Catachan Devil's taking a lot of damage. Immolate's going to be laid on the Guardsmen, so they will just try to get out of there. Taking about 30% of their health in the process. Crossbow bolt pistol going to be used again. Crippling volley, keeping those Howling Banshees in place. They even step on their own grenade. But eventually it is a retreat for the Imperial Guard there. Back up top, we're going to see another artillery shell knock around one of the Guardian weapon teams, but another one is still up. Guardsmen trying to take shots at that Guardian weapon team. So yeah, I mean there are 4 Guardian weapon teams for the players in these lanes, but I think only 3 here at the moment. This is kind of tough for the Imperial Guard to deal with. Without having some kind of a jump unit. They're relying a lot on these abilities, and these abilities have cooldowns. In total, they're basically relying on 3 different abilities, the 2 different artillery shells out of the artillery spotters, and the old reliable out of the Catachan Devils. Unfortunately, the Lord General going to go down in the process. I mean, this is kind of working, but it's also just happening very, very slowly. Not quite as decisive as you jump in some Storm Boys that just rip apart the setup team that they're on and can actually continue to do a huge amount of damage even if they're suppressed. So eventually they do make their way through. It does take them some time. It does take a lot of concerted effort from 2 different guards and players. These Howling Banshees, though, I don't think they're going to get a whole lot of value there. Yeah, they'll just get focused down. Farseer and Banshees can't really make it through that heavy weapon team that was set up. Guardian weapon team on the other side still set up, however. I think this is going to have to be... Inquisitor has to get out of there. 3 Guardian weapons team shooting at her. More shells coming in. That's going to be the Smoke Shell. Smoke Shell doesn't do damage, as we see there, but does decrease the range of the Guardian weapon team rather significantly. And then once you use the Smoke Shell, you're just trying to look to... Oh, my God. Oh, no! Are we going to see that heavy weapon team finished off? I feel like the Altar could jump in, go after it. She's going to go for it. Just one swing will do it, and there it is. Meanwhile, we do have a heavy weapon team in the garrison. This is looking a little questionable. There should be a grenade ready on retreat, or actually they might have already used it on something else. We'll see. They might not need it, this heavy weapon team. Yeah, they absolutely won't need it. That's a dead heavy weapon team. So a lot of losses coming out of our guards and players at this time. Acey is rocking with the Chimera. Chimera's going to move forward to try to threaten the Guardian weapon team. Would be a little better at this point if the Chimera actually had the Guardsmen inside of it to do a little bit more damage. Activate those side lasers. Or las. So, definitely a generator bash right here for our Eldar players. Looks like it's going to be a full one. Guardsmen moving around. Flamer Guardsmen. Man, just double Guardsmen here. Not enough to dislodge this. We even see the Guardian weapon team taking the bunker. Unfortunately for the Imperial Guard, the bunker was not booby-trapped. Guardsmen actually looking to take the natural victory point away from the Eldar. Meanwhile, this Chimera still trying to do some things. Unfortunately, it is going to be threatened by the Wraith Guard at this time. We're going to see the Warp Spider Exarch moving around here. He will be looking for just a decap on the requisition point. Stormtrooper's going to try to focus on him, certainly doing quite a bit of damage. They'll reload, they'll shoot again, and that's the dead Warp Spider Exarch. All right, then. Oh, this is a flank. Where did these guys come from? Guardian Weapon Team trying to set up. Does get knocked over by the artillery shell, but also just does... Oh, my God. The Catachan Devils are in a huge amount of trouble. Grenade thrown in on the artillery spotters. Doesn't quite catch them well enough. The Catachan Devils, though, I think they should be fine because the grenade has already been used. Oh, my God. I might be wrong. I'm wrong. Man, they actually just got ripped apart. They actually had like 100 hit points left while they were in retreat, but I guess there was just so much damage against them that it was just too much. Back to this side of the map, we are going to see a Wraith Guard chasing Acey away at this time, chasing away the Catachan Devils, chasing away the Inquisitor. It's only the Chimera that's still left in there. Are the Guardsmen inside of it? Yes, they are. So double cap for the Eldar players at this time. Oh no, the Ogrins are in such a bad position. Oh no, 2 models down. That might be the last one too. If there is like, oh man. The Autarch, she doesn't have enough damage. All right, Ogrins get out of there just barely. It's going to be a Psychic Storm, I believe. Yep, Psychic Storm. Now, Wraith Guard going to take in some shots. Double Wraith Guard are here. One of them is being tied up by the Commissar, but the other one does not have any such thing to tie it up. So it'll just have open range on these Guardsmen. Guardsmen actually just going as far as to try to get in melee with the Wraith Guard, just to make sure they can't shoot their ranged weapons, even though the Guardsmen are not that great in melee. Neither are the Wraith Guard, but I think the Wraith Guard might just win it eventually by virtue of just having a much bigger health pool. Grenade's going to go in on the Chimera. Chimera, of course, will just take its guardsmen back inside its loving transport capacity, protect them from the grenades, and well, that's actually it. That is the concede in favor of. That is the concede by the Imperial Guard. That does mean that the Eldar do take it in the end. It's a little interesting to see this, that we do see the concede there. It doesn't feel. Yeah, that doesn't feel like a incredibly necessary concede. I mean, on the one hand, you could argue full power farms for our Eldar players. I guess Imperial Guard players having trouble retaking back top, which means they also don't have the power farm right here. So pretty likely that they're going to find themselves dealing with Tier 3 stuff soon, as we see the Seer Council already on their way. Tier 3 coming out for Draktan. And so only Acey going to Tier 3. Slasher, not too far away, but their power income isn't so great. I don't know. I'm still... I mean, I guess, like, if we look at it, they were losing. They were losing. But it still feels a little bit premature to me. Well, nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed it, and have a good night.